May, when the president made that famous, proclamation or declaration, subsidy is gone, which has seen the country, in some levels of chaos and controversies. In the last couple of hours, we've seen NLC, try to find its way to get the government to revert the NSC and TUC to the former point price, but that seemed not to have worked. With the NLC saying, "Look, they may suspend their strike and then reconvene to meet with the federal government again on the 13th of June." Mr. Shari, you've seen it all in this industry. Or you know a lot in the industry. What can you tell us about how we got here with the fuel subsidy removal? This is something that had been there from way back. In 2012, there was a major move to remove fuel subsidy. We also understand that sometime during the Buhari administration, subsidy was removed for about a year or so, and then it came back. We're here again, and this time subsidy has been removed. I mean, so several times Nigerians heard subsidy has been removed, only for them to come back in 2023, and the subsidy is again being removed. How did we get here?
Well, the issue of subsidy removal or retaining subsidy has been very controversial and most times misunderstood, especially in approach on how to resolve the issue.
Yeah. Hello, Mr. Shari, can you hear me? Oh, seems like we lost connection with my guest. We're going to try to reconnect now. Just stay on and let's see that we can reconnect with my guest. This is not good. What could have happened now? Let's see that we can reconnect with him. All right. Going by what we see today, the NLC and its position, they say, well, we'd probably have to wait till later today. The NLC NEC emergency meeting would be held at about 2 p.m. and then we will be communicated. Mr. Oshare, sorry, at some point we lost connection with you. We couldn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Okay. I said the issue of petroleum subsidy removal has been controversial right from the time it started in the 80s, 1986. I remember it was a crucial period where people protested in subsidy thing. Sometimes it was called appropriate pricing here and there. The one that we are in now has been accredited to the present president, whose speech on the 29th openly declared that subsidy was no more. But we all know a year before May 29, former President Buhari had made it clear that in 2023 June, there won't be any subsidy of petroleum products. Each time this issue comes up, people are really agitated because it is controversial. But for us to understand it clearly, we need to know that petroleum is that petrol, that's specific for the common man to understand, the common man and common woman to understand is petrol is not just an economic product, it's also a social product. Social product in the sense that it touches the lives of everyone in the society. It touches the daily life of everyone in the society. So it's a social product in that sense. So anything that happens to it shoots everybody and everything. Then economic progress in the sense that you need money to make it and you need money to buy it. And it needs to put money in the treasury, in the pulse of the nation. So and sometimes these are contradictory or they are confrontational in that sense. Now, can we live with petroleum subsidy forever? No. In other words, there must be a generation that we have to sacrifice on this issue in order to get better for the rest of the country. This is why I see it. Painful as it is, but we cannot continue with it forever. That being so, we must go back to the origin of the subsidy. Why subsidy? Well, we must ask ourselves, why subsidy? Subsidy, we have subsidy because we import it from somewhere at a higher price, but people at home cannot afford the price at which we import it. Therefore, in order for people to afford it, government must take a part of the cost. So that was it. Going back, what is the origin of petroleum subsidy? The origin of petroleum subsidy, as far as I know, visibly can be traced back, or it is traced back to the structural adjustment of a social adjustment program of former President Ibrahim Babangida. When the structural adjustment came, before then, the naira was almost $2. But when the structural adjustment came, the naira was devalued and it came to about 3.5 naira to the dollar. And before then, the petroleum, crude oil, was sold for $1 per barrel. And that was the price at which it was sold to the domestic refineries. $1 per barrel. And $1, as at the time of social adjustment, $1 had become 3.5 naira. So the question was asked, do we sell to the Nigerian refinery, to the Nigerian domestic refineries at $1 a barrel, or we sell at the international price to the Nigerian refinery? People need to understand that. So discussions were made, a decision was made. In order to keep the Nigerian market stable and affordable, we will have to sell the crude oil to the Nigerian refineries at 1 naira per barrel instead of the 3.5 naira per barrel. And since the naira was, before the social adjustment, was 1 naira to the dollar, we should retain it. So the excess, that is the amount we were foregoing in the international market, the extra 2.5 naira we were foregoing in order to keep the Nigerian market stable, was then regarded as a subsidy. So subsidy then was not government putting hand into the treasury to pay some people off. Subsidy was simply the amount we were forfeiting, the cost we were losing for not selling crude oil to the domestic refinery at international market. That was subsidy originally. But over the years, mischief came in. Refineries, when they were being repaired, before we put refinery on turnaround maintenance, you have to preserve enough stock to last for the period the refinery was going to shut down. And if that stock wasn't enough, you may need to import a little to be on standby to augment the shortfall during the turnaround maintenance. Over the years, mischief makers now turned this around. Turnaround maintenance became longer, became ineffective, and even the marketers who will take Nigerian refined products will stock it offshore, waiting for when we have a shortfall, and bring that one back to us at the international market, at the international market price. So this mischief carry on. And over the year, refineries became dead. Turnaround maintenance became endless. And we became a net importer of petroleum products. Why not just being a net importer of petroleum products? The naira was also going down. The naira was also going down. This now increased the cost of petrol at the pump station to the buyer. This is how petroleum subsidy grew, and it grew to such an extent, and the perpetrators were making so much money, and they now made sure Nigerian refineries never function again. Meanwhile, the naira was also being bastardized, and the naira kept on devaluing, thereby further increasing the cost of importing petrol to this country. This shows the origin of the petroleum subsidy. Now, do we have to keep this on going forever? No. So something must be done. And it looks we may not have had a government that has the courage to take the bull by the horn. And if this government takes the bull by the horn, then we, the present generation, may have to sacrifice to rectify the situation.
Now, Mr. Shari, let me ask you. You just said that this government has to take the bull by the horn. By taking the bull by the horn, Nigerians are paying, 500 naira in some cases, to 570 or 70 naira or so. Now, what's the guarantee that if the international prices go up, these prices would not also go up, and it would be unrealistic for Nigerians to pay more? Say, for instance, fuel prices go up to 900 or 1,000 naira per liter, and even government knows it is unrealistic for Nigerians to pay that much. Wouldn't the government, in its wisdom, again, try to subsidize the prices, taking us back to the, subsidy regime again?
Yeah, I'm not the government, but I'll tell you right away that the government definitely has a plan to get this situation sorted out. And the government has also said they are going to do something about the naira. And I told you there are two things causing the subsidy: the low value of the naira, and then importation. So I think the government is going to attack those two things: reduce importation, and then increase the power of the naira. If this is done, then the situation will get better. And like I always tell people, it's got to be bad it's got to be worse in order to get better. It got to be worse in order to get better. And you can't make omelette without breaking eggs. So a generation have to sacrifice to get it better. And I suspect this will be our generation.
Well, let's hope that these things get better. But I'm looking at this and I'm wondering what the DSDP, help us understand the DSDP or the crude oil swap deals, which the NNPC says is going to end now. Because from what we understand, the direct sale, direct purchase has been an arrangement that allows for Nigeria to load up ships with Nigerian crude oil, take it to other countries where they're refined, and then sent back to Nigeria. Many questions have arisen from this as to why is it that when we say we're doing direct sale, direct purchase, we're still talking about subsidies. Is NNPC paying subsidies to itself, considering the fact that currently NNPC is the sole importer of PMS?
Yes, that is what I call the corruption problem in this input, the whole thing. The corruption input in the whole circle is so high that even the crude oil swap thing couldn't improve, and in fact, it cannot even be thoroughly explained. The original intention of those who planned the system, or the original intention of the early NNPC era, was to make sure we produce enough to the extent that we will export products. We will be exporter of petroleum products. But the corruption, the inefficiency, the lack of attention to duties, and our inability for continuity in management, inability for continuity has eroded all that. So we need to come back to the drawing board while we are doing this. First, we need to get all the refineries revived, truly revived to their maximum capacity, along with the private refineries coming up. One, we need to do that so that we can produce enough for the nation. And if we can produce enough for the nation, remember, people still smuggle to the nearby countries. People still smuggle to the nearby countries. We also need, once we are producing enough, we also need to capture the markets in our neighboring countries by directly be involved there. So that will take away the issue of smuggling. Like I said, we increase domestic production, strengthen the naira, and less government control over the production. When we do that, situation will get better. We may not come down, in fact, we may not even come down as high as 500 naira a liter. We may not. Once the free market forces begin to act truly, and I say truly, if they are not artificial market forces, then the prices may come down. Remember, the president had not let ego square after the announcement, where the prices jumped overnight. In fact, not overnight. The president was still at Eagle Square when marketers increased their prices.
Absolutely correct.
When they increased their prices. Prices of what? The things that are already being subsidized to you, the things you have already had in your hand, the withdrawal subsidy had not even stopped. You will still having subsidized stock, they increase their prices. So you can see the mischief maker, the marketers who are causing all the problem, and that is market forces. Those are not market forces. Those are dubious, fake, criminal market forces, artificial. But once we have real market forces, and once all these artificial or these mischief makers are unable to get their ways through, the prices may stabilize below 500 naira. I remember earlier in the year, before the elections, when we had some scarcity, I was in worry. There were some filling stations ready to sell at 200 naira a liter. But many of the other stations were selling at 400 naira a liter. They went to the owners of those filling stations selling at 200 naira that they were going to beat them up if they didn't increase their price to their own standards. The other marketers said no, they could afford the price at 194, 200 naira. The other marketers told them, no, you must come to our standard. That is not market. That's not market force. Those are not market forces. Those are criminal forces. So those things, you know. So right now, the prices didn't even have to go up to 500 naira a liter. And I'm surprised that NNPC itself adjusted their own prices to 500 naira a liter. And that gave room to the other independent marketers and other major marketers to adjust their prices. So if NNPC had also, with the stock they have, which also survive, if they have maybe adjusted their own price by 250 naira a liter, the other marketers wouldn't go as high as that. So market forces must also be made to be independent and free, not coerced. So market forces must not coerced, and market forces must not constitute themselves into a union. So these are some of the things, these are some of the battles we are going to face ahead.
Now speaking of,
you need strong way to do it.
Speaking of some of the battles ahead, you know, some of the problems currently is that if we're talking about deregulation, which it should mean that other people should be able to import into the country, which would mean that before now, the NMDPRA and the likes would have issued licenses to other importers, marketers to import the products into the market to create a cement competition in the market. But in a situation where the NMPC remains or is still the sole importer with licenses being issued, being processed at the moment, it's going to take a longer period before any such competition and market forces, like you indicated, would come into play. What can be done in the interim? Because I'm looking at labor's demands, to the federal government, and some of their demands, or most of their demands, are not things that can be done in the interim or immediately to assuage or rather mitigate some of the challenges thrown up by the removal of subsidy. I read a few of some of these resolutions made by the federal government and the trade union Congress, as well as NLC. It says one, the federal government and TUC, as well as the NLC, to establish a joint committee to review proposal for new minimum wage increase and award and establish a framework and timeline for implementation. Federal government and the TUC, as well as NLC, to review World Bank finance cash transfer scheme and propose inclusion of low-income earners in the program. The federal government, TUC, and NLC to revive the CNG conversion program earlier agreed with labor centers in 2021 and work out detailed implementation and timing. The labor centers and the federal government to review issues hindering effective delivery in the education sector and propose solutions for implementation. The labor centers and the federal government to review and establish a framework for completion of the rehabilitation of the nation's refineries. The federal government to provide framework for the maintenance of roads and expansion of rail network across the country. All other demands submitted by the TUC and the federal government will be assessed by the Joint Committee. Now, some of the demands by TUC includes a 200,000 naira minimum wage increment. And I'm looking at all of this, taking particular interest in the federal government and TUC's conversation around CNG conversion program. That had started, was stated by the former Minister of State for Petroleum, Timipri Silva, and we haven't seen, per se, the pilot scheme started, I think, in Edo State, where some cars were converted. But this is what NLC is putting forward. This is not something that could be done in the next 3 months or 4 months or even a year. It would take a while. The reconstruction of rehabilitation of refineries. These are things that are going to take time. We've heard that the NMPC, from the NMPC, that the Port Harcourt refinery would not even come on stream until about December this year. The Dangote refinery would not also come on until maybe the end of July and August. So where are we with the issues that have been thrown up and how we can mitigate the problems? Because as many Nigerians agree, subsidy needs to go, but the problem is the palliatives or interventions of government to ensure that Nigerians don't continue to suffer hardships.
Yeah. Now, that is the issue. One, you started by talking about NNPC being the sole importer of petroleum products. Yeah, NNPC, at one hand, it looks like the sole importer of petroleum products. And if NNPC is the sole importer of petroleum products, so the subsidy is being paid to NNPC. That is what it looks like. But in reality, it's not like that. I think most of the importers are importing on behalf of NNPC. So now I would say that instead of importing on behalf of NNPC, you cannot import for yourself. Because many of the depots for which these imported products are sold are private tank farms. So they are private tank farms. So they can go ahead and do that. Then now talking about NSC to TUC and response to withdrawal of removal of subsidy and the government. It simply exposes how short-sighted we are, or how we deliberately ignore things, ignore problems that are coming, and pretend not to know them until they appear. It exposes us as a people who are panic, panic administrators and panic workers. We take everything into. Now, we saw long ago the removal of petroleum subsidies coming. Even when the petroleum industry bill was being debated and being passed to become the Petroleum Industry Act, it was stated clearly there. That bill was in Parliament, was in the National Assembly for several years. And they talked about the need to remove petrol subsidy. It was being discussed, and it became a part of the act. The NLC, the TUC, never at that time pointed out the implication of what that will be. Nobody challenged it. Nobody acted. Nobody said, if you are going to do this, you must do this in order for this to happen, in order for these consequences not to happen. Nobody did it. Nobody. TUC did the act. NLC did the act. They let the bill roll on. Everybody kept quiet. It was like something that would never happen. But it was part of the act. The act had to be implemented. For more than 1 year, former President Muhammadu Buhari said it, that subsidy will be removed. TUC did the act. NLC did the act. The former president presented a budget to Parliament, to the National Assembly, and insisted that subsidy will end June 2023. TUC did the act. NLC did the act as if it was cinema, Nollywood. We saw it coming. We were told. We didn't put conditions on it. Now it has happened. That's why we are setting committees to do this, to do that. Come on. We must be honest with ourselves. We must be fair. We must be we must see things in advance. We must be proactive. We are living in a country that we are not proactive. And sometimes we do things based on who we know, or what we have, or what we get from it. What is in there for me? Sometimes that's what we act. And that is boomeranging all of us. When we're in a comfort zone at a particular time, we think we touch us. It will touch every one of us. So the time has come. Maybe somebody has come now to take the bull by horn. Those shortcomings, those missteps we took many years ago, those things we didn't do, those actions we didn't take, this time we're going to take the action now. So the consequences will be hardship for a while. So the consequences will be hardship for a while.
Okay.
It's quite painful. It's unfortunate. But it's because we didn't act when we should act. And now when we are beginning to act, we cannot be misunderstood. Even though if our action is genuine, we cannot be misunderstood. We cannot be blamed. But we saw this thing coming many years ago. And we didn't act.
All right. Mr. Shari, just hold that thought. We'll be talking some more. The conversation continues here. This is your radio experience you can count on.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Hi guys, today's guest is someone special. He is Mr. Peter from Garby's Court Estate, Abuja, which is a subsidiary of Garby's Environmental Consult Limited.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Please listen to this announcement. Have you heard of the Blue Ocean Project? The Blue Ocean Project is an initiative of the C21FG launched to show ambitious, smart, and business-minded individuals how to raise funds for their businesses or projects without taking loans or dropping collateral. With this project, selected individuals will have mentorship access leading up to business funding and expansion. Who is eligible to apply? Anyone above the age of 20 who is desirous of improving their lifestyle can apply. We have slots reserved for only the first 50 people that will send OK as SMS to this phone number 081 78 77 7696. 081 78 77 7696. That is 081 78 77 7696. Finally, 081 78 77 7696.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Thank you again for staying with us. This is Eagles Outlook on your radio experience you can count on. It's been an interesting conversation we've been having with my guest, Slick Oshare JP, who is an oil and gas specialist, a convener for the alternative approach to the Niger Delta, as well as a public affairs commentator. He's been sharing thoughts with us on this interesting conversation, quite revealing and instructional. Well, you can join the conversation. Feel free to jump in with your 2 cents. We have a few minutes to get your thoughts in. 09073530044 and 09087668888. Now, I'm going to come to this message sent in by Chooks, and Chooks says, "Good morning, Ihanacho. How did we get here?" Super nice question, really. We got here because we refused to follow directions that our collective compass threw up. In short, we missed our way. Please, ask your guest why it seems cooking gas has crashed. What's the connection with subsidy? Chooks, thank you very much for that question. I'm going to put that question to you, Mr. Sherry, shortly, but let's bring in a caller first. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the program. What's your name?
My name
This is
is
Paul. Paul, good to have you. Paul, I can hear you.
You know, when the petroleum price has increased now,
my brother.
we begin to forget our name.
My brother. Yes, Mr. Sherry, we have a caller on the line. Just listen to his submission. Yes, go ahead, Paul.
My prince, honestly, I want to appreciate your guest, Mr. Oshare, this morning. Very insightful discussion, and I like his background and the historical background of this subsidy. And the questions to ask is that, does government take the historical background of every occurrence of issues before taking decisions? Those are the questions we are asking. Nobody in this country is against the subsidy removal, like your guest said. But the truth of the matter is that, as this government that is just coming on board, have they ever sat down, or did they call some experts to sit down and then analyze, give them the analysis, the historical analysis of how the subsidy even started, what it was meant for, and how did it get to this level? And then at the end of the day, it will give them a better perspective. Second thing they would have done was to look at who are the people who are taking the subsidy. If they have been taking the subsidy, did they pay or did they supply the petrol as the subsidy was meant for? Now, another question they should have asked, these refineries, at the beginning of the Buhari administration, they talk of revamping the refineries. I remember at the time, I think either money was released or not, I don't know. They talked about revamping those refineries. Towards the end, they brought it again. I remember the Minister of State for Petroleum, His Excellency Timothy Silva, took that matter to the National Assembly. And people were complaining. Nobody is asking questions about that. Nobody is asking questions about that. Now, the problem is, I want to ask you again, how can this government build up confidence in this policy? These are the kind of thing that is surrounding the government in terms of implementation of all the programs and policies and their monitoring. And then secondly, what are they going to use this subsidy for? It has never been unveiled. And then me, as a civil servant, I pay tax. My tax is taken from source as a payee. And then this tax is taken. Then
this subsidy that they've removed has taken all my salary. I bought fuel like twice. All my salary is gone.
All
And
right.
then I need to survive.
All right, Paul.
So what is the government doing to take care of all these issues? So
Okay,
those are
Paul.
the questions we're asking. It's not about removing the subsidy. But what are they going to use this subsidy money for? I hope it's not going to be the same recycle problem of going into private pockets. Thank you.
Okay, Paul. Thank you very much. I'll put that to my guest. And Chooks again says, hello, Mr. Shari.
Yes, I wasn't hearing anything anymore.
I'm sorry about that. Now, Paul was asking, how can this government build up the confidence of Nigerians, in all of this, as well as he's asking, what will the money be used for? Because, like you mentioned earlier, the corruption in the system is what the biggest problem is. Now, what will the government be using these monies for? The monies that will be recovered from subsidy. Yes, that will be saved from subsidy.
Yeah. Well, whatever money will be saved from subsidy, because if we are not paid subsidy, it means our income will be higher, isn't it? So if our income is higher, then government can spend that income on priority projects in the country. And we all know that the priority projects in the country, one, we need to increase minimum wage of workers. Two, we need to attract more investors in this country, because manufacturing and food processing will reduce unemployment, and once unemployment is reduced, then the commercial aspect of the country will improve, because workers will have more money, people will have more money to buy things. And once you buy things, then it's a shame it goes around like this. People will have more confidence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
because
yes,
then the road and rail infrastructure, we can also concentrate on them and improve them. Then international confidence. The international investors will have more confidence in us. In other words, they can give us more loans to increase our railway network and other things like that. Education, the universities, the educational facilities need to be improved to make our education so standard that we don't need to send our people away to other countries. If you notice now, UK, United Kingdom, is making more money from their universities now because of Nigerians going there. So that money going to UK and other countries for tertiary education can go back into our system.
Okay.
That's what we come at about that.
Okay, so Chooks asked earlier, what is the connection between the prices of gas and even diesel crashing in the markets of recent with the subsidy removal? Is there any connection?
In fact, that thing took me unaware. I had just bought gas 2 days earlier when I found that the price crashed. I still do not know yet, so I cannot give you a concrete answer at this. But I intend to call my friend who is a gas dealer, a very major gas dealer, and I will tease him and find out what happened.
Okay.
So until then, I cannot concretely say. But you see, most gas importers are not necessarily petrol importers. Many of them are not necessarily importers. And I also do not know what has happened to Nigeria Energy. Whether Nigeria Energy has increased the production of gas, I do not know.
Okay.
So I need to, because we also produce liquefied natural gas at home in Port Harcourt. Nigeria Energy is doing well.
Very well.
Yes.
Okay, let's bring in. Sorry, sir. Please, let's bring in this caller. Has been on the line waiting. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, friends.
Good morning, Engineer Femi.
Yes.
Good to have you.
Yes. I have economics and I read economics and I love economics, and we know what happens across the world. In Germany, every government university is free for citizens of Germany. US still pays over $128 billion as subsidy per year. So you ask yourself, what are you benefiting from government? All these assumptions, oh, the money will be spent on education, on hospitals where we don't have good infrastructure. Who promised you that? And when they promise you that, what is the timeline? Is it signed anywhere that this is what is going to be done? If it is signed, what about Buhari that moved it from 89 naira to 190 something? Where are the things that are supposed to be done with all of that money? You know, all this sitting down and just hearing rhetoric and assumptions, it becomes worrisome, really. Because nobody has shown any example of where, oh, the money from here has been used for here. If you ask why, he will tell you we raised the budget for certain infrastructure and things were done, oh, a bachelor was used for it. Then you ask yourself, what is the subsidy idea? And here's my solution. Why don't we cut the subsidy by half and allow it to whittle down a bit, while we now set up timeline for what's Dangote's refinery producing PMS, because it's start producing other things apart from PMS in July or something, PMS, and then we encourage modular refinery to come, and then we'll give you the timeline from between now to the end of the last quarter for us to now increase it by the other percentage. So it will whittle down well. Now, the consequence of this action now is one, the purchasing power of citizens are caught up. This increment in basic salary is for civil servants, not for private investors that are far more than the civil servants we have in the country. So what will happen to them?
All right, Engineer
Because
Femi.
of moving things, we don't have enough transport to move things from rural areas to urban areas. So the cost of food will go up. Inflation is already high, unemployment is high. So
All right.
where are we assuming these things from? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Femi, for your submission. Now, let's get to Chicks again says, the corruption in the system is so high, says your guest, Ihanacho. This is the bottom line of the entire subsidy thing. What guarantee do helpless Nigerians have that the so-called subsidy savings will not be embezzled or misappropriated by dishonest government officials? This is the point. Someone should respond, please. Now, Mr. Shari, let me ask you, what do you think can be done to ensure that, the savings from subsidy removal isn't rediverted like we've seen in the past?
Let me tell you something. Whether you do savings on subsidy or not, if you don't attack corruption frontally, corruption will still be there. So saving the saving from subsidy, whether it's going to be attacked by corruption, doesn't mean that subsidy should not be removed. Corruption will be there in any way you put it. Nigerians are basically corrupt. What we need to do is to have the will, to fight corruption to the hills. Is to fight corruption to the hills. First, in this country, corruption has sometimes fighting corruption or corruption itself is tribalized, is religionized. If you find somebody stealing, looting government properties, looting government treasury, if you take him up, his or her tribesmen and women will come fighting for the person, forgetting that the action of the person is even affecting them. So we tribalize everything. We interpret everything in religion. So whether you remove subsidy or not, or whether you remove it or not, corruption will still be there. Remove subsidy. Do the best. Plan the gains into other sectors of the country, including the petroleum industry sector. But fight corruption openly and honestly.
Okay.
Whether the corruption was directed towards the savings from subsidy removal or directed to normal budget, fight corruption, and the fear of corruption should not be a reason for not removing subsidy and saving the economy.
And this would just be a very good place to leave the conversation. Mr. Slick Oshari, JP, oil and gas specialist, convener, alternative approach to the Niger Delta, and public affairs commentator. Thank you so much. I wish I had more time to, extend this conversation, but I hope to reach out to you sometime soon again so that we can discuss further. It's been a pretty interesting one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
I'll
much
be there.
for joining us. Appreciate you. And this is where we leave
No.
the anchors on the program this morning. Thank you to everyone who's made inputs in the conversation this morning. Really appreciate you. Would have to go now. My name is Ihanacho Prince. Keep it with us.
Eagles 102.3.